Like, you know how they're super close as they get older and they have friendships and they love each other and blah, blah, blah.
Similar to this creator, I don't have a super close relationship with my siblings, and I'm actually estranged from one of my sisters. And this has actually caused a huge rift in all of our family. Like, the dynamics are all over the place right now. But it's because of my parentification. I'm the eldest of a Mexican family, so since I was in elementary school, I've been in charge of taking care of my siblings. My siblings, my whole life, have viewed me as a parental figure.
I keep seeing these videos where like younger siblings are expressing their hurt and frustration and pain around their older siblings not being there, not having a relationship with them, neglecting them after college or moving out. And those feelings are very valid, right? Like I'm sure it hurts to feel neglected as a younger sibling or feel like you don't have a relationship with your older sibling.
When two siblings don't like each other or they hate each other, it is largely...
He ends that with, it's largely because the parents are not doing a good job. Let me tell you, people do not talk about sibling relationships enough and how parents need to intervene if the relationship is poor. If you have children that you cannot leave in a room together because it is dangerous, you need to intervene as a parent and get them help.
We don't talk a lot about the loneliness that comes from not having a sibling alliance. If you and your siblings grew up in the same household that was dysfunctional, abusive, neglectful, traumatic, but when you try to vent or to debrief with your siblings, you hear things like, oh, it didn't happen like that.
Hey, besties. You ever sit and wonder why some siblings grow up not talking, not vibing, and honestly just not close? Like, you'd think growing up in the same house would make people tight, right? But a lot of us know firsthand, it's not always sunshine and matching outfits. Today, we're unpacking some real truths. We're diving into why siblings grow up emotionally distant or even estranged, and spoiler alert, it often starts with the parents. Buckle up, grab a snack, and let's get into it.
A family dynamic where one sibling is it's blatantly obvious that they're the favorite.
I have had multiple people who have children tell me that it's impossible to not have a favorite child. We all have our favorite people in our life, and sometimes those people change. Same with your favorite child. Sometimes that changes. But what's important is that you treat all your children the same. So none of them ever realize or figure out who the favorite child is. And one thing I've come to learn over the years is that favoritism, when a parent is blatantly favoriting a child, it is a learned behavior. For example, my mother growing up blatantly favored my older sister and my youngest brother. There's 5 of us kids total, but those 2 just were perfect and she put them on a pedestal. My younger brother, he's the baby of the family, and he got everything he wanted, and he could do no wrong in her eyes. He would literally do something, blame it on someone else, even though she watched him do it, and then that other person would get punished, even though she watched him do it. My sister and I are the only girls, and my mom made it very clear that she never felt as connected to me as she did my sister. My sister is 14 years older than I am, and my mom used to tell me when I was around the age of 14 that, you know, when your sister was your age, I could take her out of school for half a day and take her shopping, and I just can't do that with you. My sister would come home from college or come to visit after she moved away, and they would have, mother-daughter dates that I was not allowed to go on because that was just their special time. I can't tell you a single time my mom and I did a mother-daughter date, just us. They have gone on mother-daughter trips, and I have not been included because it's just for them. And anytime I have ever brought it up that it upsets me, I was just being a brat. But the thing is my mother grew up in a household where her and her siblings were constantly fighting for the favoritism of her parents. Now, for contrast, my father grew up in a very opposite household. If I had to take a stab at who my grandmother's favorite child is, it's probably my dad because he's the youngest, but I don't really know for sure because my grandmother treats all of her children the same. And my dad treats all of his children the same. I couldn't tell you for sure who the favorite is, but if I had to take a stab, it's probably me. I only say that because I was the easiest out of all the children. I didn't get in trouble. I sat in my bedroom and would read and was quiet. But the whole point is, I would never know. So, parents, we see what you do when you are blatantly favoring one of our siblings. And if you are wondering why one child doesn't really talk to you or come see you, you might need to take a look in the mirror.
Okay, so this is random and completely off topic, but I have a very serious question. You know how in movies, how siblings are explained to be enemies, to be best friends? Like, you know, they have that older brother who's super protective, or like the older sister who's super protective, or like, you know how they're super close as they get older and they have friendships and they love each other and blah, 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 blah. Am I the only one who does not have that relationship with their siblings? Like, I see y'all online talking about, oh, I would die for my sibling and my sibling is my best friend. My brother leaves me unseen. He does not text me. He does not call me. He does not come and hit me up. And I would say that it's because we've been through a lot as adults. But even as kids, my brother did not give a fuck about me. In fact, like, we weren't even friends. We were just forced to live with each other. I can't tell you my brother's favorite color. I can't tell you his favorite movie. I can't tell you his favorite car. I can't tell you really anything about my brother. He's never really let me in. He gives more time and attention to like people he's dating. I've seen him give effort to people he doesn't know more than he's ever given to me, even as kids. And like, this is no shade, no tea to him. Like, again, at the end of the day, siblings are just strangers who are forced to live with each other, I guess you can say. And like, we did beef. Like, we did have moments between each other in our childhood and adulthood where it's like, oh, I don't really fuck with you like that. But I've seen like siblings like thug it out through the hardest stuff. But like how you see how siblings like are super protective over their siblings and, you know, will ride for them, all this stuff. I've never had that. Like, I've never had a protective older brother. I've never had a protective sibling at all. In fact, I was the one who always went to bat for people. Like, I've had more guy friends and bros that I've met in my teenage years to adult years that stuck up for me and been there for me way more than my own blood. Like, it's crazy. Like, I've never had that type of protection from my own brother. And again, this is not to me to shit on his head, but I'm just saying, like, I don't want to feel like I'm the only one who's gone through that. Like, has anyone else experienced that?
We often romanticize sibling relationships in movies and media. You know, the ride or die dynamic, the nobody messes with my sister but me energy. But that's not always real life. Just because you grow up in the same household doesn't mean you're emotionally close. A lot of times, kids are raised in completely different emotional environments within the same house. What one sibling experiences isn't always what the other experiences. Let's talk about favoritism, besties. It's more common than we like to admit. When a parent constantly praises one child while nitpicking or ignoring the other, it plants resentment. One sibling ends up feeling less than, while the favorite might feel pressured or entitled. Either way, that imbalance is toxic. And the wounds run deep, well into adulthood. It's not always overt either. Sometimes it shows up in subtle ways, like who gets more support, more affection, or more freedom. The child who's not favored often grows up questioning their worth and feeling isolated not just from their parent, but from their siblings too.
If you see a family and the siblings aren't close, 9 times out of 10 it's because of the parent. And parents don't understand that they be the reason why siblings aren't bonded. They always talking about one of the siblings to the other one, always making it seem like shit is a competition. And sometimes they love certain siblings more than the other one. All that shit can cause bonds to break and siblings to not fuck with each other. Like when my babies get old, I don't want the reason why they're not close is because of me. I'm going to raise them that your sibling is one of the most important people in your life. And I'm not going to be starting shit between them. And like, parents need to know when you're going back and forth telling the siblings what each sibling said about them, you're starting shit. Now they don't want to bond because they feel like, damn, what you got towards me? And I've witnessed this firsthand. That shit is not cool at all. You got your siblings thinking that you better than everybody because your parents are putting that shit in their head. That's not cool at all. Like, I feel like parents need to understand whatever you got going on with your child, keep it between you and that child. Don't go and bring in all the other siblings into it. Like, it literally becomes a big ass mess. It becomes hard to come back from that type of shit. Now you looking at your sibling all funny because you feel like I can't trust you no more than I can't trust a bitch off the street. Like, parents, y'all need to find somebody else to vent to besides your kids because y'all are the reason for them not bonding. And it gets to a point where you have to fall the fuck back and realize that shit. Apologize for that shit.
We don't talk a lot about the loneliness that comes from not having a sibling alliance. If you and your siblings grew up in the same household that was dysfunctional, abusive, neglectful, traumatic, but when you try to vent or to debrief with your siblings, you hear things like, oh, it didn't happen like that. That didn't happen. You're so sensitive. That's all in the past. We don't need to talk about it. When there is sibling alliance, your burden is halved because you have people who can validate your experience. You also have people who can mirror back to you some of the things that you experience, especially if you were a younger sibling. But when there isn't sibling alliance, it is truly an isolating experience.
Now this one right here. A major red flag in dysfunctional households: parents who gossip about one child to another. Like, why are you dragging one of your kids to the other kids? That's not only immature, it's harmful. It turns siblings against each other. This kind of behavior is called triangulation. It's when a parent uses one sibling to emotionally manipulate or gang up on another. It creates unnecessary tension and distrust. The targeted sibling starts to feel like the black sheep, while the others may feel closer to the parent, but only because they're being manipulated too. It's messy, and it plants seeds of long-term emotional distance.
Like, you know how they're super close as they get older and they have friendships and they love each other and blah, blah, blah.
Similar to this creator, I don't have a super close relationship with my siblings, and I'm actually estranged from one of my sisters. And this has actually caused a huge rift in all of our family. Like, the dynamics are all over the place right now. But it's because of my parentification. I'm the eldest of a Mexican family, so since I was in elementary school, I've been in charge of taking care of my siblings. My siblings my whole life have viewed me as a parental figure, but they also grew up seeing how my parents treated me as their personal assistant. So they grew up believing that I was somebody who was there to do things for them, to fix things for them. And because my parents used me as their emotional punching bag, my siblings started to repeat those patterns. And as I started going on a healing journey and imposing boundaries and demanding respect for myself, my family did not know how to react to that. And that has caused estrangements and huge rifts with my relationships with my siblings. So truly, the reason why a lot of people do not feel close to their siblings is because our parents did not teach us how to value each other as siblings. Please do not beat yourselves up if you do not have close relationships with your siblings, because a lot of us were not set up to maintain healthy relationships. We were set up to maintain dysfunction. It is completely okay for you not to have a close relationship with your siblings. It's okay for you to take space to heal yourself, and also to allow your siblings the space to heal themselves as well. You deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, and if people are not treating you that way, they do not deserve to have access to you, regardless of whether they're your family or not. Sometimes not being super close is the best way to maintain relationships.
I keep seeing these videos where like younger siblings are expressing their hurt and frustration and pain around their older siblings not being there, not having a relationship with them, neglecting them after college or moving out. And those feelings are very valid, right? Like I'm sure it hurts to feel neglected as a younger sibling or feel like you don't have a relationship with your older siblings. But one common thread that I am noticing is that the older siblings raised them or was like a second parent to them, and or they only neglected them after they left the house, like after college. Once they moved out, like that's when the relationship like died. And essentially, it is not siblings' responsibility to foster a healthy space for like relationships to flourish among siblings. That belongs to the parents. Like that is their responsibility to do.
Raise your hand if you were the responsible one growing up. Now raise it higher if that meant parenting your siblings. Some parents rely too heavily on one child, usually the oldest or most emotionally mature, to take care of the others. This child becomes the second parent, often losing out on their own childhood. Meanwhile, the other siblings may grow up resenting the bossy sibling, not realizing they were just trying to survive under the pressure. This imbalance builds quiet resentment. The sibling who is overburdened might grow up bitter and exhausted, while the others might never understand why there's distance between them. Parents sometimes project their own trauma or unresolved emotions onto one child. Maybe the child looks like a parent's ex. Maybe they remind the parent of themselves. Whatever the reason, the child becomes the emotional punching bag. And again, it affects sibling relationships. The other siblings might not witness the abuse, or might be taught to blame the victim sibling. That divide is powerful and long-lasting.
100 reasons why I hate my parents. Because of my mom, I have a horrible relationship with all of my siblings. Growing up, she would always turn us against each other. If she would be mad at one, she would talk shit about that person with the others. She never wanted us to stick together because us sticking together would have made us stronger and it would have made it easier for us to go against her. That's just a theory that I made up, so I don't know. She'd always ask us questions about the other, and obviously because we were all in that horrible situation, we were all in our survival instinct, so we would always go against each other, so we would not be like the one getting in trouble. It was better to snitch than to be the one who got in trouble. If she would do something horrible to my sister, or behind my sister's back. If I would tell my sister, she'd be like, oh, you're causing trouble. You just want us to be against each other. And I'm like, you shouldn't have done that. And I am telling her because she deserves to know. That's not me trying to turn my sister against you. That is me trying to make my sister aware of all the horrible stuff you're doing. I used to like dislike all of my siblings individually, and honestly recently our relationships have been better, and I think now we're working on it.
When two siblings don't like each other or they hate each other, it is largely...
He ends that with, it's largely because the parents are not doing a good job. Let me tell you, people do not talk about sibling relationships enough and how parents need to intervene if the relationship is poor. If you have children that you cannot leave in a room together because it is dangerous, you need to intervene as a parent and get them help. Bickering every now and then is normal in siblings, but if your children don't think of themselves as a gang, like it's them two against the parents, then there's something wrong happening there. Just like kids need to have a strong bond with their parents, they also need to have a strong bond with each other. And if they don't, you got to intervene. And if you don't get them help, you can end up having siblings that as adults do not speak to each other. And that could be the start of a generational curse there. And all the problems that occur with adult siblings, they all stem from their childhood. As a parent, there's so much you have to worry about. Just get a therapist for yourself, get a therapist for your kids, for your spouse, for just a therapist for the animals, just a therapist for everyone so we can break these generational cycles of BS.
He's the smart one. She's the pretty one. You're the difficult one. Sound familiar? Family labels are dangerous, y'all. Once a parent casts a child in a role, it's hard to shake. Those labels shape how siblings see each other and themselves. And if a parent favors one child's achievements over another's, the divide just widens. Siblings begin to compete instead of connect. And that competition, especially when it's rooted in needing parental validation, creates walls that are hard to tear down.
This is one of the most unexpected challenges that I think some adult children find when they are going low contact, no contact, becoming estranged from a parent, or even just like pointing out dysfunction in that relationship, and that is the downfall or the tension that comes up in their relationships with their siblings. So let me explain that. I think a lot of the time we assume that because maybe we had the same experiences, we grew up in the same house, maybe we're related genetically, maybe yes, maybe no, that we have the same like memories and beliefs and thoughts about our childhood. And a lot of the time this isn't true for siblings. They actually have very, very different interpretations of the events and understanding that they've developed in adulthood. And this is because of personality, temperament, the age at which they experienced the event, what they needed to do to kind of like survive that event, how they interpreted it at the time, the resources that they had. There's so many factors that are involved in this. And so when we get older and we talk about this stuff with our siblings and they don't agree with us or they can't validate us or they even tell us outright that like we're lying or we're making it up or they don't remember it that way, it can make it feel even more isolating and challenging to navigate that issue with the parent. And so this is something we've been talking about inside the Calling Home community for all of January. We have support groups on this and a lot of content, but I really think that it's worth looking into like, how can I understand where my sibling is coming from and how can they understand where I'm coming from when we talk about these issues that we both faced?
Fast forward to adulthood. The childhood dynamics don't just disappear. They show up in how siblings communicate, how often they see each other, and how much trust there is. Sometimes, one sibling tries to heal while the others stay in denial. Or one may cut off the parent for survival, while the others stay close, leading to even more disconnection. But healing is possible. It takes honesty, accountability, and boundaries. Sometimes siblings come back together when they're able to have real conversations, separate from the parent's influence. Other times, the healthiest option is distance, and that's okay too. If you're navigating this kind of dynamic, know that you're not alone. The first step is awareness. Naming the patterns helps you detach from the shame. Therapy can help, journaling helps, and even open convo with siblings, if they're receptive, can be healing. But also, bestie, let's be real. Not every sibling bond can be salvaged. And that's okay. Some of us had to raise ourselves and survive family dynamics that weren't safe. You're not broken. You're surviving.
There's a family where one sibling is estranged from the parents and the other siblings or other sibling is not. What can you do to be supportive in these situations? So I'm going to tell you some things that you can do and some things that you want to avoid, because I think this happens a lot. And we have to remember that this happens because all siblings have a different experience of their parents. And even in the most dysfunctional families, some children can experience their parents as more loving and kind, and some of the other siblings can be the victims of really serious and terrible abuse. So the first thing you want to do is try not to assume that your experience is the same as your siblings, and don't try to force them to have the same experience as you. It might be true that your parents have been very kind and very supportive of you because you fit a specific definition of what they think is a quote unquote good child, and your sibling does not, and they have received very different treatment. So try to let these two things exist at the same time. My experience of my parents can be my experience, and their experience can be theirs. Try not to triangulate with your parents. So do not become a mouthpiece for your parents and going to your siblings and saying, you really need to be nicer to mom. You need to stop doing this to her. Instead, allow your sibling and the parent to work this out on their own and see how you and your sibling can have your own relationship separate from what's going on with the parent. Try not to force them to be in contact with the parent or to do things exactly the way that you would do them. And then I think the hardest thing for siblings is that sometimes siblings can be a reminder of what happened in the family. They can be a reminder of abuse, of hard times, of things that don't want to be processed yet. And I have a podcast episode with Fern Schumer Chapman that you can go find on the Calling Home podcast, where she talks about this from her own experience, that sometimes siblings will avoid each other when they are not ready to deal with the pain from their childhood. And so it's not that a sibling necessarily wants to be estranged from the other siblings, but that they just do not have the capacity to maintain those relationships under these circumstances.
So besties, if you've ever felt distant from your siblings and wondered why, maybe this helped you connect a few dots. Maybe it reminded you that your experiences are valid and your healing matters. Whether your sibling relationships are strong, strained, or non-existent, just know that you get to choose what your adulthood looks like. You can break the cycle. You can name the pain. You can protect your peace. Until next time, adios besties, two hearts.